start the recording.
Okay, we are recording now.
Hey everybody, we got Wayne here in northern Colorado. We got Hugh in South Africa. We got Arif, who's shy, but he's got his webcam on there, from Pakistan. We got Mark from Bangladesh, and people from all over the world that have already come and told us that they're online. Alicia and Faye, and Jeffrey, Kate, Chris, a number of others, Patricia, Jeffrey. Anyway, and Jeffrey says he's still upstate. I'm glad you are, man. Anyway, we're going to have a really great time with Hugh. We had the pleasure of having Hugh with us for a number of weeks in doing a course with us. We called it Series at that time, back when we were very first getting started, and he was amazing. And he's going to give us a little bit of an update today on how this whole thing is affecting people in the farming industry and the COVID virus and what you might be able to do. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm just going to quickly ask him a couple questions. But before that, if you guys have questions, throw them up on the screen. I'm going to be monitoring the questions today, and we'll make sure we get them answered by you or some of us. If you can't hear us, put that in there too. If you can't see us all right, just say that you can't at any given point. Throw in some ones if you like something, or right now maybe put in some ones if you hear us and see us okay. So I think with all that, I think I'm going to move over. You tell us just in a couple of minutes what's gone on in your life in the last 3 years, I think, since we've been on together.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. Hello, everyone. Yes, it has been 3 and a bit years now. I did the course late 2016. It's been an active time in my life. I spent 14 months working in the UK, not farming related. I've been back here since late 2018 and have been working on a couple of projects, one in Ghana, which was supposed to be, it didn't happen, unfortunately, but I was involved in the planning of it and writing the business plan. 132,000 hectares. I'm trying to double it in a bit. 300,000 odd acres of organic cropping. That was basically 2018, 2019, and then I'm currently, hopefully at the end, approaching financial closing on a coconut and fruit project in Mozambique that covers about 100,000 hectares, so 250,000 acres. We're putting up a processing plant there to process coconut water, coconut milk, coconut yogurt, coconut cream, and some fruit and vegetables. The vegetables to make soups and things, and the fruit to blend with, mainly to blend with the coconut water.
Tell us about your family a little bit. Everybody healthy from the virus and just other things over the last 3 years?
Oh, yeah, we're all well, thank you. My stepdaughter went down to see her father in Cape Town, which is 1,000 miles southwest of us, and hasn't been able to come back. Fortunately, she's having a great time, and Dad has really stepped up and he's helping a lot. So my wife and I are just taking a little us time, the honeymoon we didn't get.
All right. And tell people coming from different parts of the world, what's it like there weather-wise right now, and just generally.
Yeah, well, we're we're late autumn now, or late fall for you guys, heading into winter. So hence the jersey I see. Use jumper. What do you call this? Pullover.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Pullover, something like that.
Pullover. Yeah. So that's where we are now. Come to the end of the warm bits, heading into the cold bits. Hopefully, COVID won't be too drastic for us, but we don't get that cold. We don't get anything like as cold as you guys do. Oh, except of course if you come from Florida and the southern states. But yeah, we'll go down to to freezing overnight, but typically up to 20 during the day, 20 centigrade, 20 Celsius during the day. So 65, 66.
Aside from COVID, how has the agriculture economy, let's say up till February from 3 years ago, been in South Africa?
Well, I think we're also in an arid area, so low rainfall, fluctuating rainfall. It hasn't been too bad. I think we've had 2 years of no El Nino, which for us is a good thing. El Nino is a bad thing for us. I know it's a good thing in other places of the world, but for us it's a bad thing. We get all our rain comes in summer, from September to last week, end of April, and then the rest of May to August are dry. So, but we've had reasonably good seasons over the last 2 years. Money, as always, profitability is still our big concern everywhere. Input costs way too high, enriching the Monsantos and the fertilizer companies and those kind of people rather than the farmers who are doing the work.
Have you seen any change in attitude in the population generally about the exploitation of companies like Monsanto and others? Just, is it becoming more?
No, I think that if I can be political for a moment, everyone still thinks Bill Gates is a hero. We are still very much entering the GMO world rather than being one of the leaders to start moving away from it. We have finally, I see Kenya has agreed to take GMO stuff now. Zimbabwe has finally started taking GMO products. I think Zambia is still a holdout, not allowing any GM in the country, but I'm presuming it too will fall when it has a bad season and needs to import grain, corn mainly, to feed the population.
Well, let's do this. Let's transition now and let Hugh go ahead and do his presentation. I remember he's the opposite of some of our speakers. He sort of usually overestimates how long it's going to take. I think we'll have some time at the end to ask him more private questions and other things. We do have a question right now from Alicia. And again, I think you're right, Alicia, but he's going to talk about his website a little bit. Maybe Arib will even be showing it, or he'll show it. Might have a little video and so on. So let's go ahead and let Hugh get going on his presentation. And then if you've got questions, put them in while it's going, but we might defer the answers to them till the end. Go ahead and take it away, Hugh.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, everyone. You can tell I'm a native from the United States from my accent. No, I'm still living on the southern tip of Africa. Still very happy here, doing my farm coaching business. For those of you who have met me before, I coincidentally graduated 40 years ago on Wednesday with an agricultural management degree and have basically had 30 years of being a toxic chemical farmer. If we were doing the 12 steps, I would introduce myself as Hugh, and I am a chemical farming addict. I've tried to break that in the last 10 years or so, as I've realized the damage that's been caused through soil health degradation, soil erosion, and all this kind of thing. I also spent 20 odd years working in industry, mainly implementing business systems. So I've worked in a lot of industries around both factories and mining. And in fact, the job I talked about 14 months in the UK in 2017, 2018 was working on a software implementation in Exeter in England. What I have gained from that is a wide experience of how industry works, and I believe this has provided me with a wealth of experience that helps me in setting up my farm business coaching operations. I'll leave my website up at the end of it so that you can see. And I am currently trying to set up a few training courses that we're hoping to launch in the next few weeks. Other than that, my passion is now regenerative farming, and I am planning to set up a regen ag center here on a piece of land that we're looking to buy in the next 6 months or so. The idea of that is to offer training and education courses, field trials, farm visits, and to provide a biological soil service after we've qualified from Dr. Elaine's lab, Soil Food Web School. I won't be doing that. I'm too old to learn new tricks, but I have a team who we're going to push through that, and we will be helping existing farmers transition to regen, and also hopefully breaking bad schooling habits for young farmers wanting to enter farming, and we'll try and get them straight into the regen ag. With that, I'd like to go ahead and just discuss what I think we can learn from COVID-19. It's obviously been, I'm sorry, now I'm in the wrong window. Let's see, there we go. So we're in COVID-19 has affected us. It has swept down on us. We read about it in Wuhan in China in late January and February, and suddenly by the end of March, 4 billion people were in lockdown all over the world. We're all experiencing this pandemic. It's created huge disruption with the lockdowns around the world. Worst affected, I think, are the global processing and distribution activities, which have basically had to shut down. I believe that the good news in the States was that 90% of your pharmaceuticals were manufactured in China, so that's not exactly a comforting number. And this led to panic buying. And Wayne never told me if there was anyone on from Oz, but if there is, let me know how you're doing on the toilet paper there. Have you run out yet? For farming and agriculture, I think industrial ag has been worst hit. We're seeing plant closures for animal processing. We're obviously aware of the big plants closing in the States, but all over the world, even Oz, South Africa, the UK, UK and Europe, we're seeing plants closing, both through infection and just generally in under lockdown conditions. In the States, we're hearing of large-scale euthanizing of livestock before processing in the form of hogs and chickens mainly. And because industrial ag relies on this consistent supply of finished farm produce to process into food or industrial products, I think this euthanizing of livestock to take the new cycles in is going to set up chain reactions into the future. We haven't seen the end, or we haven't seen a shortage yet, and we won't be, but for chickens, 6 or 7 weeks' time, we're going to have holes in production because of this gap that's happened now, and I think we're going to be seeing holes in supply later on. Plus, if COVID gets worse in the plants, I don't think even a presidential order will be able to keep them open. There just won't be enough people to run them. But has it all been? Oh, sorry, this thing's moving on to this. But is it all bad for farmers? As I've just said, for the yield-driven industrial scale farming and ag businesses, I think it's been not a death blow, but a huge shock to their system. It's mainly affected livestock because of where we are in between seasons, as it were. In the Northern Hemisphere, you guys are starting to plant your new summer crops. And in the Southern Hemisphere, we're about to start harvesting them. So we haven't seen any disruption to the cropping side, but the livestock side has been affected tremendously. And unfortunately, our colleagues in the contract growing industry have been hard hit. We're talking about the contract growers in the for the hog farms, the poultry farms, and also feedlots. They've all been devastated by this. They're having to kill these poor animals. And the markets have been affected because all catering and restaurants basically closed for business overnight, some 6 or 7 weeks ago, or whenever, depending on when everybody went into lockdown, and they're on limited activity in most places. I know this last week, our restaurants were allowed to start preparing takeouts. Until then, for 5-6 weeks, we had no restaurants at all open. They were not allowed to supply anything. So that did no good to anybody, especially not Uber Eats, who are our biggest delivery service here. So that did them no good either. And it'll be interesting to see going forward how the catering and restaurant supply restaurants reopen. Catering will reopen gradually as factories reopen and offices reopen, but restaurants are going to be tough. I don't think we're going to see restaurants. I'm seeing a lot of articles by chefs and people in the industry that this is a watershed for them. They don't see them opening up in the same way. But I think for EAT members in general, because we're not in that industrial scale farming world, most of us, there may well be some, but for not smallest family farms, but let's put it as a family farm type operation down to the small farms, things have not been so bad. After a little shock, I did see an article from Joel Salatin saying they'd had to destroy, I can't remember the quantity, I think it was 10,000 eggs because their restaurant customers closed. But now I'm seeing the opposite from both Joel and Will Harris at White Oak Pastures in Georgia. They can't keep up. White Oak Pastures had to increase their shipping department by 16 people in this crisis. They're not keeping up. The people who are not suffering are the farmers selling food products, and I'll discuss what I mean by food products a little later, and the farmers selling directly to consumers. There are some lovely stories. The picture on the left is from a farm in Pennsylvania who was told by their dairy processor to start dumping milk because they couldn't take milk anymore, and they pulled out a 30-gallon pasteurizing tank and started pasteurizing milk 24/7. And the picture shows a queue to go into the farm. This story got out on social media and into the local press, and apparently the support has been incredible from people saying they admire the tenacity and their ability to trade their way through this bad time. I think also we're going to see an increase in demand for regional and on-farm processing plants. As the big plants close, people who don't have contracts with the big plants, I don't know how it works in the States, but they've been scrambling around trying to find processing capacity. And I hope this points to a new future for farmers producing food, that we will get more directly into the market, and we'll come to that a little later again. So I see this as, in computer terms, a soft reset, or Control-Alt-Delete for those of us who use Windows machines. It's nature begging for a chance, a timeout. And I do believe that nature is also showing us that given an opportunity, it can recover extremely quickly. For us to see seas clearing as quickly as they have, smog disappearing as quickly as it has, and to see the increase of wildlife. I have two examples from South Africa, down in the near Cape Town, which is 1,000 miles south of me. We have a huge bay, and they're seeing dolphins there for the first time in 50 or 60 years. And they have also, at a place called Simonstown, which is our big naval port, had penguins strolling up and down the streets, which is, depending on how you look at it, a good thing or a bad thing. But nature has come back and said, thanks for the break, I think. Maybe I'm just weird, but the other thing I think is that I can't lose sight of the fact that almost exactly 100 years ago, we had a very similar pandemic rip through the world, the 1918 flu. I know it's been compared, but I don't know that 100 years cycle is going to be completely random. Just my word out there, just in case you think I'm a conspiracy theorist. People too, I think, are showing different character in social media. I feel that most of the comments you're seeing, outside of conspiracy theories, please, are that we're missing people more than things. You see people bemoaning the fact that they can't see friends, family, they can't get close, they can't do meals with friends, that kind of thing. They're not bemoaning the fact that they can't go shopping or can't go to work. So, and I think that this is a time when most of the world, I know my wife and I have been doing this, is we've kind of assessed what our normal was, and we've agreed that we don't want a new normal that looked like the old normal. We don't want to go back where we came from. We want something new in our lives. And in the profit column, I think nature's rebounding supports things like regenerative agriculture and holistic management, considering all contexts when planning our farms, not just doing our normal human reductionist thinking of reducing everything to one problem and one solution. This is a quote from my favorite character in Regen Ag. I'll give you a few seconds to read it. Gabe and his son farm in Bismarck, North Dakota. I think it's a very life-affirming quote, and had to share it with you. For a long time, we've heard that farmers feed the world. We know in ourselves that farmers feed the world, but do we really? And I ask each one of you to think what you're producing. Are you producing food or inputs for a factory? Live animals, live cattle, live sheep, live pigs, live chickens are not food. Our consumers can't consume them or process them to turn them into food. They have to go through a factory. Likewise, corn, soybeans, wheat typically have to go through a factory before they can be consumed. And this is actually what the industrial ag business model is built around. This processing of farm produce. Let's put the risk on the suckers who want to work outside and grow stuff, and we'll add value supposedly and sell them onto the consumers. We'll build these cozy relationships with the food retailers and get kickbacks on high prices, and we can work on thinner margins because we're more efficient. And well, I think suffice to say that I don't think the farmer makes as much profit as the food processor. For many years in South Africa, I've quoted the price of Kellogg's cornflakes because, as we know, if we read the box, it is simply soaked corn, rolled and baked. That's how Dr. Kellogg invented it 100 and something years ago. But so I just compare it to the market price of raw corn, dried corn, the stuff that goes to the elevators, and what we would pay for Kellogg's cornflakes from our local grocery store. So to put it into US context, I Googled yesterday morning, corn was available through trading on the Chicago Board of Exchange at 4.5 US cents a pound, 4.5 US cents a pound. Walmart offered me Kellogg's cornflakes, except they were out of stock. But it kindly offered to sell me Kellogg's at 90 US cents a pound. That means that between the farm and the consumer, there's a 45 times multiplication. No, it's not all profit. There's processing, there's distribution, there's retailer markups, there's retailer margins, there's everybody margin in between. But do we not think that farmers need to try and close that gap a bit, either by dealing directly with customers or by just adding value to their products instead of selling non-food products off the farm? In the previous slide, I emphasized the fact that farms producing food have actually scored under COVID. In this crisis, in this stressful time in the world, the farms selling food to consumers have actually benefited, and no real hardship for them. I have a couple of case studies that I'd just like to work through with you, just to show you what I do, not actually COVID related, but maybe in resetting your new normal, you might give consideration to this. The first one is a study that I was involved with a friend of mine who runs an 800-acre dairy farm. He does year-round grazing. And when we started this in 2011, he was buying a lot of feed in from off farm to try and boost his production by increasing his herd size. Anyway, in 5 years, we managed to reduce the off-farm feed purchases to zero. That's a saving of $50,000 a year, 100% saving. We also reduced his fertilizer usage from 150 tons to 18 tons a year, 88% reduction. We did reduce his cows and milk from 180 to 100 cows. As I said, for the reason that most of them, they were consuming the farm couldn't feed that he had to buy in. We didn't have enough production on the farm. Now at 100 cows and milk, he can produce enough on his farm to feed them. No need to buy feed in anymore. The good thing, despite the near halving of the cows, is that the farm gross margin increased from 13% of sales revenue to 62% of sales revenue. When I started working with John in 2008, each year I basically did his financial forecast for him with a view to going to the bank and borrowing money, whether it was rolling over existing facilities or whatever. But we did our forecasts and budgets with that in mind. I'm happy to say that no longer happens. Debt has been reduced tremendously. It's profitable. I've seen such a change in their life, the life they can live. Their son and daughter-in-law and grandchildren have joined them on the farm. John's basically semi-retired now. They did up an old house in very comfortably, and this to me is a happy ending story. The other case is from New Zealand. I recently read about it in an article on regen farming from New Zealand, and they quoted stats from a farmer in South Otago, Hamish Bielski, who actually is a friend of mine on Facebook. So I asked Hamish if I could share these, and he sends his greetings and he says, "Go Regen Ag, go." Okay, so in 6 years, he moved totally to Regen Ag on 750 acres. He reduced his fertilizer from 150 tons to 2. That's a 98% reduction. I've asked him why he didn't get it to 0, but he hasn't been able to answer that. It may well be that he still has to put micronutrients down. He has not followed Dr. Elaine's principles, by the way. He does do mob grazing and that kind of stuff, and he also managed to reduce his diesel by 90%, from 12,500 gallons to 1,250 gallons a year. And if you think it was because he downsized, he grew his herd by a third, from 2,600 to 3,400 head. He won't share his profit story with me, as I wouldn't share it with anyone else, but that's our personal things. But he did sheepishly admit that things are better than they've ever been. Asked him if he was making money. He just said to me, things are better than they've ever been. So another positive, heartwarming story that you can maybe fit into your planning for the future. We'll do some takeaways later on. My third one is about value adding. Farm to fork, as they say. And I've just considered milk. We can sell dairy milk as, not almonds, because it's hell to get up that early in the morning to milk all those almonds, but let's sell some dairy milk. That makes us some money, and we may or may not make milk profit out of it. But one of the problems about that fresh milk market is it's short shelf life. It's a perishable product. It has to be handled quickly. It has to go to market quickly. It has a short life in the market. And, well, unfortunately, it's also controlled in the main by huge agribusinesses. I don't know them. Land O'Lakes is the one and Dean Foods. I don't even know if Dean Foods still exists. If, however, we change our milk and turn it into cheese, yogurt, ice cream, shakes, doesn't matter. We can add value because the products that we've changed get better than our milk price. And the nice thing is there's a longer shelf life. So we're not so desperate to sell it every single day, because if you're a dairy farmer and you've got dairy, miss one day of milk collection and you've got to start dumping milk because you don't have enough storage for it. And your processor will tell you to start dumping when they're full. So not much loyalty there. But the point being that we can increase our market and penetration, pricing. We move it out of the commodity status into a branded status. We can have a story like our friend from Pennsylvania who ticked some boxes and has got a great little business going. I did see did answer a post on Facebook yesterday from someone in the States saying they'd never heard of the RECO community. RECO is a concept that came out of Finland. It's a Facebook thing. There are now thousands of them. We have in our little area 3 of them supplying 3 different villages and their communities. It's a marketplace where farmers and consumers can meet, place orders, make offers of stuff for sale, place orders, and there are typically drop-off times at a central point. And when you go to that central point, you don't just have milk on offer, you have the full range, from herbs right the way through to meat. They're all there, and it's a great concept, and it may be something, if you don't have anything in your area, to take a look at. I think it's a great thing, and it's certainly taken our communities by storm. They've grown from 10 or 15 people at a market to hundreds at a market now. Well, at a drop-off. It's not really a market. Unfortunately, I always get caught and I look and think, okay, I actually could do with something this week, but when you see them all collected, they are only delivering. All the stuff that you see there is already sold. So what are our solutions going forward? And this again is not necessarily COVID related, but it's thinking about COVID. It's thinking about how we need to change our businesses to meet the needs of a changing world. I think our first thing is to restore our soil health. One of my quotes that I will keep putting out there is, for all of our human advancements, everything on earth depends on the fact that there's sun, rain, and the top 6 inches of soil. We have treated it badly, sorry for the pun, but we've treated it like dirt. It's not dirt, it's a living organism, and it needs to be treated like that. Pouring chemicals on their poisons, and as Dr. Elaine says, toxic chemical farming or industrial farming or commercial farming, whatever you want to paint it as the existing model, has damaged soil terribly. It's not irreparable. I'm currently working on a project plan for 4,500 acres in southwestern Kansas with a financier who's asked me to help him on the agricultural side of the business plan. We will see the return of nature if we stop damaging our soil, if we start rebuilding our soil. And I'm sorry, folks, sustainable doesn't cut it. We've got to not just keep it the same as it is now. We've got to restore it. And the reward of that is that we will pass on something better than we got to the next generation. We also, as people, need to think of the changes that COVID has forced on us, the so-called new normal, that's a buzzword out there. The new normal and pivoting your business are our COVID buzzwords, by the way. So we've got to think about doing something better. Joel Salatin put out a blog post last night, and it actually had 13 points, which I haven't included any of them at this stage. But the one comment he did make is that he's found that consumers are more interested in food and nutrition, have been more interested. I saw a thing from France yesterday also where some guy said, I've just never had the time to get out to the country and see what's available there. He says, I'm not going back now, but this has given me the time and the space out of my frenetic life to go and see what's out there. And let's see if we can get our production from farm to fork. Because if we supply consumers, we get a share of what they're paying for the product. The 90 cents a pound for Kellogg's cornflakes. Please, I'm not suggesting you go into business competing with Kellogg's. I think they'll kill you. But think of those products. One of my favorites is shakes. When you think of what you pay for a shake in a drugstore or wherever you would buy a shake in McDonald's, and compare that to what they paid for the milk that went into it. I shouldn't have used McDonald's because I don't know that there's any milk in their shakes. But let's assume they put some dairy milk into the shake. If you compare the price of that you get as a farmer for the milk against what you pay the supplier for the shake that you buy, there's a lot of profit to be made there. And get to know your customers, because the point is that if you get to know your customers, they will get to know you, and they will go from being customers, which are once-off sales, to being clients, who are regular return sellers. It purchases from you. They're the ones that will be the lifeblood of your business. And you might have guessed I'm a proponent of Regen Ag. Regen Ag works with nature, helps restore nature's balance on your farm, and the good news is helps reduce costs. You saw from those case studies how much people are able to save on reducing costs. And whilst I understand that farmers feel their prices are too low, there is a corollary to that, or an opposite to that says, well, maybe the prices are what they are because we subscribe to a fee market, and it's actually our input costs that are too high. I know everyone will say you don't have much choice, but if we get to reduce our input costs, it must improve the profitability of our farms. And I'm a great advocate of stacking enterprises. I love this little picture my wife found for me for this presentation. But where you can consider stacking in enterprises, because you can build a circular self-feeding system. For example, you can make cheese, you can make butter, you can do all sorts of things and use the byproducts, the whey, the buttermilk, all that to feed pigs and chickens. They love it. And they are living proof to me that vegans have it wrong when they say that there are no adults other than humans drink milk, because every mammal that I know, okay, I haven't tested dolphins. Every mammal I know loves milk at any age. So feed it to them. Saves you buying feed for them where you can feed them high protein whey and save on your protein costs of your hog feed. Thank you, folks. As Wayne said, I probably rushed through it again, not taken the whole hour. Sorry about that, Wayne. You have my cell number there, my email address, and my website address. please, I'd love to hear from you. Happy to answer any questions one-on-one, anything that you don't get answered on this webinar. I'm happy to take up with you at any time. And with that, I send it back to Wayne and question time. Thanks so much.
Hugh, you were unbelievable, as you were when you were with us before. Arif, if you wouldn't mind, because I want Hugh to concentrate. You've got lots of questions here, Hugh. We'll easily get up to the top of the hour with questions. Keep them coming, everybody. You guys have been awesome in your questions. Really great thoughts. Also, lots of other cool quotes that people have had, too. But maybe you could throw up Hugh's website, Arif, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, and Arif, I think you might be giving us some feedback, so you might want to mute a little bit. All right, so let's go up to the top. So I'm going to get these in order. The first one that we had here is from, just a second, Hugh, it's coming up here. I've got some thoughts too, but I'm going to wait till we get all these questions done about value added that you've done. So let's see. People ask about replays, by the way. Replay will be available for this about 2 days from now. It'll be on your eCommunity site. We've been starting to do more transcripts. Somebody asked, have there been, let's go with this one. Do you know if case studies like the 2 you gave, or the 3 you really gave, Hugh, are out there? Because I agree with others. Even great stories like Gabe's and many others, Will Smith's, you name it, they don't really go into the financial numbers, not the details, but percentage of gains or losses like you did there. I think that comes from the accountant in you and the financial guy in you. But are those 3 that you've described, are they published anywhere else?
Certainly Hamish is in. Hamish has appeared in fact, I'll have to think. There've been a number out of New Zealand in the last week. There's been a lot of review of Regen Ag in New Zealand. This one Hamish's one came off a report on Stuff, stuff.co.nz, who are very good with Regen Ag stuff coming out of New Zealand. They're a general news site. It was a report on generally Regen Ag Farmers Day, I think 2 or 3 Farmers Days, some other groups, and there were probably 4 or 5 other case studies. I just happened to be tickled by the fact that Hamish was able to reduce his fertilizer by 98%. I thought Dr. Elaine would have been very proud of him.
So you addressed this one, but just put it at the top of your mind to just kind of maybe give any off the top of your head thoughts. So Alicia asks, COVID-19 is a wake-up call for the world. Any thoughts, any additional just that you put together since you put the presentation together, not necessarily just ag-related? And you did talk about some of this, but what's the biggest thing you see that's probably going to change in the world in your opinion? Post COVID-19?
I think globalization is going to take a knock. I think that from a food security point of view, nations, be they in Europe or the US, are going to realize that outsourcing your food supply is not a smart move. That's my personal feeling, and I hope it is, because for me that would be the best outcome that we could hope for. It's not smart to be like the UK. I was reading in BBC, I think it was, news the other day. That their grocery stores. Sorry, I have to think of terms. Their grocery stores. Some of them. and I can't think of it now, Aldi's. Their grocery stores live on a 2-day just-in-time supply model, which has been totally destroyed by COVID. It didn't help that there was panic, but there was. It didn't help that there was panic buying on this. But so if you're asking for your vegetables to come from Spain, hello Les, or from Poland or Romania, and you're only allowing 2 days for it to hit the store, that's asking for trouble. To my mind, it may appear to work very well and very efficiently when it is working, but when you have a complication, whether it's a pandemic or a weather break, I think that's asking for trouble.
Here in the U.S., Hugh, and this statistic hasn't changed in 25, maybe 30, 40 years, no major city in the U.S. has more than a 3-day food supply before people would be killing each other in the streets to get food.
I can believe it, because in London, one of the things they're blaming the food shortages in London on is the fact that all the restaurants are closed, and you're probably seeing this in the state, and 33% of meals in London are eaten outside the home. Now, those 33% of meals now have to go and buy them from the grocery store.
Yeah, I think it's higher in London, probably. Just a little. That's a gut feeling. I have no statistics on that.
Well, Joel always quotes. Yeah, Joel quotes 50% of meals are prepared now outside the home. But I don't know where that stat's for. Sorry, I did see a question from, where are we? John Ness.
While you're looking, John asked a question. I think I know the answer, but you can. Has Gabe written a book? I don't think Gabe Brown has written a book.
Yes, he has written a book. It's called.
Has he? Okay.
Yeah. So he has written a book called From Dirt to Soil, a memoir of a family transition to regen ag, and Gabe and Ray Archuleta and Dr. Alan Williams have the Soil Health Academy and Understanding Ag. I think Understanding Ag is Dr. Alan Williams's stuff, and the Soil Health Academy is the three of them. They put out lots of case studies on what they're doing with people.
Here's one. This is from Jeffrey, and Jeffrey is I hope, going to be a speaker for us again sometime. He's been with us before. But while people in our community are applauding the return of nature and the opportunities being created for local sustainable businesses, and he's living upstate New York right now, the powers that be will do everything they can to get back as business as usual. How can we bring more of the public along to resist this juggernaut?
I agree with Jeffrey 100%. There's going to be a push to return to business as normal, to the world as normal. I think that we've got to enlist the support of consumers by helping them to understand both what we're doing and how we're supplying, and by telling them what the big companies are doing. So I did get asked by my wife to leave out my diatribe against dairy processing. So you didn't get my vitriol about dairy processing and how they have single-handedly destroyed the dairy market around the world by their activities, which get them profit, and now they're whining because other people are switching to other forms of, shall we say, white water, because that's what you buy from your grocery store around the world, white water. So you got the diatribe anyway. Sorry.
That's a good one. No, and you, by the way, everybody come back and watch some of Hugh's previous sessions when he did talk about not so much the diatribe, but in almost a factual way about what goes on with dairy processing. Hugh, do you have a book, Hugh? That was a question from Alicia.
Alicia, I'd love to say yes, but I know it's from John. John, I'd love to say yes. Unfortunately, it's still all in my mind, shall we say. I do think there's a book there, but if there was anything I left school and university hating, it's writing essays. So to put me in front, I can't even write a 300-word blog post. So I'm very bad at that. My wife has promised she'll take over from me, and she'll start writing for me. She loves writing, but obviously we have to work closely together. But I have definitely considered it. I've got the chapters all lined out, and that's as far as it's got.
So Alicia does have a couple here. Here's one regarding soil degradation. Do you think that most of it occurred after World War II?
Okay, so I have seen a quote from the Civil War, US Civil War, about why people were leaving Tennessee and Kentucky and Virginia and moving west, was because the soil was depleted. I think that we have, though, and anyone who's listened to Dr. Elaine blames it all on the tractor. Because the advent of the tractor, where you could now plow hundreds of acres a day rather than the 6 you could manage with your oxen or with your mules, has made a huge difference. And yes, I think that post-World War II, it exploded. And I also think that we had the huge entities, the Monsanto, Bayers, Dow, name them all. They're all in this rogues gallery who appropriated agriculture for themselves, reduced it to commodities, and simply got farmers addicted to their chemicals. When I'm in good form, you'll hear me talking about, getting farmers off their chemical fixes. They don't think it can be done anymore. But the reality is that's only been 60 years since we had inorganic chemicals as fertilizers. We've always had, for the X thousand before that, we used organic fertilizers. But only since post-World War II is when we acquired our inorganic chemicals, which are all arrive with us in salt form, which is particularly destructive of soil biology.
All right. Alicia also said it seems to be all about the money. Any thoughts? And she's talking about ag in general, I think.
No question about it. Unfortunately, the ag industry is very definitely the industry in which the farmers do the work and the others reap the profits. Anyone who's ever just gone to a farmer's meeting, have a look at the nice vehicles, the dual wheel trucks and the the crew cabs and the new latest models. They don't belong to the farmers, they belong to the representatives from the chemical companies and seed companies. Most of them are one and the same thing. So, Alicia, you had a comment, a question about community-supported ag. I hope it will. I hope that one of the models that goes forward is community-supported ag, where we're getting the support of loyal people who like what we produce, and we have this awesome relationship that allows us to be sure of where our stuff is going. That to me is the top model, to be honest.
Awesome. By the way, Leslie's on here. You've already given a little shout out to her, and Leslie and Hugh are friends, and we're trying to convince Leslie to come on again and do. And I think she said maybe, yes. So she said if you'd help her with the tech side, she would come on. So,
yeah.
But here's a great one from Leslie. What do you think, Hugh, about if the consumer was told more about the food value of regen ag, would it be a good way for it to help people make a change?
I think it would be lovely. It's a hard sell. So we have to understand the world we live in. College, for us university, college research, all research effectively is funded by Big Ag, if I can put it kindly as Big Ag. They're also the advertisers in the magazines, the newspapers, on websites. To get exposure for this is difficult. It's kind of a stealth campaign. I think social media can help a lot with that, but generally it's a stealth campaign. One by one they shall fall. But it's about teaching. I've had some raucous evenings here trying to tell kids exactly what it is they're eating. And I've managed to convince a few, even a vegan, to change their ways about how they eat. I have failed to convince my stepdaughter that she's addicted to sugar, but we'll get there. I think she knows that she's just not ready to kick the habit.
Jeffrey, you might want to further articulate your comment here, but I love it. Maybe you could just throw a little bit more in the chat, or even raise your hand if you want. We'll unmute you. But he makes a comment which maybe leads to a question. Post World War II, weapons to ag input. Not sure exactly what he means there, but if you want to, Jeffrey, maybe we can unmute you, or you could just type in some other thoughts. Kate says, Dave Montgomery did a great book, Dirt, The Erosion of Civilization, goes way back further than World War II. That's true, very much. Matter of fact, it's clear that most of the huge civilizations of the world, collapsed because of decimation of the food production that they had. So Jeffrey did say, Mark, would you unmute him real quick?
Okay, give me a second.
I did. Jeffrey, can you talk?
Yes, hello you, hello Wayne, Arif, everybody. I am not an expert on this subject, but many of the weapon systems that were developed during World War II were repurposed to be fertilizers and pesticides after World War II. And that's what I was referring to in my comment. And
so it wasn't the positive things like we know came out, or some of them that came out of the space race, but in this case they turned weapon technology into fertilizer technology, and they saw there was money to be made there. Yeah. You have any other thoughts, Jeffrey? I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on the famous artist who was the illustrator for the Saturday Evening Post. Wayne, you probably remember his name better than I do. But there was a very famous painting of his. I'm embarrassed. This man is an American institution.
Remington.
No. Try another one. You're close. Same standing.
Oh, yeah.
Nonetheless, this is a picture I show in all my sustainable agriculture classes. It is an image of a family farm, folks standing outside of a barn, and an ag extension agent talking to the family. And I say to people, this looks like a wonderful bucolic image of traditional agriculture, but it's not. It's actually the beginning of industrial ag. And what I point out is it's an ag extension agent talking to the teenage girl in the family who has her 4-H book, which is a youth ag organization primarily, and he's measuring the dearth of a cow, and he's basically promoting a mechanized approach to agriculture, which the painting was done around 1948, if I'm not mistaken. And it is really an eye-opener for people to see that picture and look at it from a very different perspective, to realize that we didn't just wake up yesterday and find industrial ag. It was a process that has been in place now in an active form, certainly since World War II, and probably less so since the advent of the agricultural extension program. I worked in the agricultural extension program here in the United States for a number of years. I was the regional director of a national water quality program that was run through our extension service. And I would travel all around the country and meet with extension agents. And the sad part about the story was that many of them understood regenerative agriculture. Many of them actually were endeavoring to do research in this area, but every single one of them told me that the university did everything they could to undermine those efforts.
Yeah, no, that's, boy, you look, I sit right down the road from Colorado State University, which most people tout as one of the top ag education, every different thing you can imagine. And there are a lot of amazing regenerative, restorative professors there, and they get literally throttled by the big ag folks, of which there are a lot of those there also, because they get threatened that if the research monies don't come in from Cargill or Monsanto or Kellogg or you name it, you guys won't be able to do your fun little kid stuff that you do for your research. So,
yes. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to comment, and I very much appreciate your presentation.
And I'm sitting here looking. The guy's name starts with an R, and even as I said Remington, I knew I was wrong, but I'll get it later. But we've gone over a little bit. We appreciate you staying. I don't want to take too much of Hugh's time, but a couple more questions if you've got them. Thank you, Jeffrey. That was awesome. That David Montgomery book is a great one, by the way. Here's an interesting one this is an interesting name, Waiting for Name 300019. So somebody's probably on the phone. But anyway, I would love to ask my question live. You know what? We'll unmute you. Yeah, go ahead. Ask the question. 300019. I hate that. That's a number on something.
Okay, I'll get him.
Ma'am? Are you unmuting her?
Yeah, I'm trying to. 30.
Okay. I'll just, while we're waiting, because I am a single 66-year-old woman with a 13-acre farm in Maryland. I would love to get help with regenerative agriculture. How do I find someone? Oh, wow. We'll let you get your question live if you get on here, but here's the sad thing to me. Just do a Google search for regenerative ag. Mark Shepard, however, who gave over 100 weeks of presentations on our little network here, is somebody you could certainly go to. Evan Folds, who did 27 weeks. Mm-hmm. Gabe Brown, you just heard. There's Alan Savory. The list goes on and on. It sounds like she's unmuted. So go ahead.
I am unmuted. Thank you so much. Yeah, I have never I've lived in my home for 38 years. I've not used chemicals on my land. I've been an organic gardener since the 70s, but I just feel I really need some help in brainstorming how to really utilize my land. It's a little bit of woods, some pasture, and and I just need some help actually doing the physical stuff. I have a tractor, I have a barn, I have potential, but I just don't know. And I have places, actually, I could offer a place for someone to live here in my home, but I just don't know how to make the connection with someone.
Ma'am, what was your name? Because I don't want to just address the number.
I'm sorry. Thank you. It's Simone.
Simone, that is an awesome question. And by the way, I think that's a challenge for farmers little farmers and bigger ones all over the world. And I wish that our community would help a little more than we are this way. I'm going to put you in touch with a couple people. One of them is Jordan Green, who's just down, and he's going to be doing a webinar for us in a couple weeks, but he's in Virginia, can't be more than a 2-hour drive from you, my guess is. He is son-in-law of Joel Salatin, for the way, but Joel Salatin might be a reference for you, for somebody who could refer individuals. There are got to be hundreds of thousands of young people, and I don't mean young in age, young in their maturity as farmers, although young people in age would be wonderful too, who would love to come and take you up on what you just offered at your farm. I have hundreds of those that come to my place every year, hundreds, because all I do is offer a place to live, a little bit of education, and an amazing place to gain knowledge. And from the land, not from people so much, from the land and having some equipment and so on. Because what's lacking out there for most young farmers, again, I don't mean it in age, is what you have. They don't have land, they don't have a place to live, and they don't have equipment of any kind. And if you have those, then share those with the people that have the desire for, what you need. That's what we need to be doing a better job of, I think. Norman Rockwell, that I knew it was with an R.
You got it. Yeah, and I feel like, I love being in nature and, of course, the space and the privacy, but yet I really long for the community, and this would be a way to have the like-minded community, who want to heal the earth. And that's kind of a bottom line thing, really. I mean, what can we do if the earth isn't well?
Hugh, would you answer that question a little bit more generally for South Africa? You've got to have heard that from farmers, that they can't get
absolutely.
the physical help, the people
Part
help.
of the reason why I'm trying to establish this the Regenerative Ag Center is to provide on-farm training and education for future farmers. And I emphasize that because I'm not trying to train future farm managers. I want people to go out and farm for themselves, or to get a wonderful opportunity like this to go and help in a farming situation. But yes, it is difficult. And Simone, unfortunately, we could probably talk for an hour and come up with names. It's just, for the moment, people in that area, the names of people that I've met in that area escape me. But there are Regen Ag, a number of Regen Ag groups on Facebook, and I'm sure if you posted something in there, you'd be inundated with it.
And Simone, let me just say this. Here's one thing you should keep in mind. You're going to have some failures, meaning there's going to be people, for example, if you put an ad right now in Craigslist for your local area describing what you just said you would like to have, you'd get more people applying than you would know what to do with. The problem is, most of them only want to just come and live. They are functionally homeless. That's a factor that has occurred in this country a lot in the last 10 years, and even more in the last 5, even more in the last 2. And Jeffrey just had a great one, which is Contact Young Farmers of America, or Future Farmers of America, which used to be in almost every high school rurally, and now they can't afford them any longer to even have programs. But if you did a Craigslist ad, you'd get people, but put up with some failures, because meaning you might have to kick some people out, quite honestly. I mean, lay the groundwork at the front end and say, you know what, if you come here, you're willing to work, I'll give you a place to stay. you can say. You're not willing to work, you can't stay. And unfortunately, you're going to have a number of those that will happen. But you're going to get some gems too, some amazing people.
Yeah,
Here's
and I
somebody
also,
yeah. And thank you for your email address. By the way, we would have seen it probably from the webinar. We're going to help you, Simone. We're going to help find somebody for you. But there are
thank you.
thousands like you out there. I know there are. So.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
And thank you for
Jeffrey
the
said
program.
woofers. Woofer, people don't know probably what woof means, and it's actually got two W's in it, Jeff. So it's the Wide World of Organic Farming, and it's a website. There's another one called HelpX, which is British. It's helpx.net. And there's a third one called volunteerbase.com. And those are people who are trying to travel for some period of time, make a transition in their lives. There's lots of reasons that they're doing it. Again, the one I've had the most problem with, where people are essentially functionally homeless. They really don't want to really work or take advantage of the farming side of things, is woofing in the last couple of years, where HelpX and Volunteer Base have been more people who want to do something. And so what we do here is we provide lodging and food for a certain amount of time working, but it's only a minimal amount of the week. There's 168 hours in a week. And so if a person works 25, there's a lot more time to do other things. If you have an exciting farming possibility, they'll volunteer more time. They'll put in 60 to 80 hours in some cases, where really you only had expectations for 20 or 25. It can be a really good scenario. So, any other questions from anybody? It's getting a little after, and I want to make sure we're kind up to Hugh here and not keep him on a lot longer.
If I may, Wayne, just answer Alicia. She's got an answer. Alicia, I would love to discuss co-authoring a book with you.
Yeah, and I told her that. I mean, after you said that you had, and we have other people in the community, Hugh, and Leslie can attest to this. Hugh's a wonderful friend to have too, Alicia. And so, if you don't mind, we'll connect the two of you. And Alicia's a regular with us, Hugh. I'm sure she'll do something pleasing with you that will benefit you both.
Excellent. Thanks.
All right. Jeffrey just made a nice comment here. In our region, we are confronting the equity issue so that we are not fostering serfdom. Yeah, I mean, that's true. We can't do that. One quick value added, just because you guys know, most of you, that I deal with the aquatic side of farming is my expertise. I get asked probably 10 times a week, why aren't you growing those bass in that pond to sell into the food market on a regular basis? Well, I do, but I only do it once a year. Because if I tried to do it every week, I'd lose my rear end. You can't make money doing that. I do it once a year, and I make it a party. And I have the chefs come out here, and we barbecue, and we have fun, and then we electroshock the fish. We bring out 2,000 or 3,000 pounds. They pay more than market value for them. They do events with those fish, and they only do it once or twice a year because I just don't make them available the other time. They love it, and I make 10 times more money than I would make if I harvested those fish all throughout the year, like most people would do. You got to figure out ways that work for you. And last one on that line, I also grow fancy goldfish, koi, that breed themselves. By the way, I don't feed these bass anything. It's all natural. Same thing with the koi. And again, once a year we sell them to pet stores. They pay $60 for a 6-inch fish. I can't sell 1,000 bass into the broad market for more than $60. You got to do what the market says will help you in what works for you. And that acreage you have, those 13 acres of wood, you could probably still keep 5 acres or 7 acres of those wild, still enjoy that, and still have regenerative farming on some of the other acres that you have. So there's a lot we can do that we just don't even know. We just don't think about it sometimes. Hugh, any last thoughts?
No, Wayne, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. It's been something that's been bubbling under in my mind for a while, and I've loved presenting to the eaters again.
We love it. So I'm going to talk with you offline about taking what you've already done and turning it into something, because I went to your page on your website where it said farm courses. There aren't any there. We're going to help you solve that. We're going to turn something into it to where you can have that on your website, get your word out further, and we'll get it out broader to the EAT community also. So if you guys don't mind, put some ones in there if you've enjoyed this. And I know you have, and Kate and John, thank you for your thanks. Thank you, Hugh. Mark, thank you as always. That guy behind the board, as we say, I think in the thousands of these we've done now, he's missed like 1 or 2. He's always there. And thanks to all you, the community out there. You guys are awesome. Go watch replays. We've got a whole bunch more of these really good ones coming up in the near future. Jordan Green coming up, and Jordan Bontanuli. Mark, who am I missing? Throw out some other names. There's lots of them coming in soon.
Yeah, Kate is.
Aaron Nixon.
Right. Yep. So Jerry and Dave Rozier from what repeated what they've done. So anyway, let us sign off for the evening. Thank you so much, everybody. It was awesome being with you. Mark, take us on out.